All right, everyone. So I think this will probably be a little bit more helpful than prior videos. I'm going to try to keep it somewhat brief and really just do the second paragraph here together. So again, if we look at this first bit, we have, we're starting primum, pauci, greci, verunt, skiron. And you have a indicative verb, verunt. So that's the verb to go. And who went? You have the subject being a few Greeks went. Primum, adverb. First, a few nominative plural subject Greeks went, and they went skiron, to skiros. That's the proper name of an island, a small island. So it won't use a preposition for motion toward. It's part of that locative thing that you learned maybe earlier this year or last year. So first, a few Greeks went to Skiros, and that on is just a Greek accusative ending. Remember that Skiros is the island on which Achilles had been hidden by his mother. His mother's name is Thetis, Thetis. Thetis. Thetis is Achilles' mother, who's a nymph, and Achilles is very much a bit of a mama's boy. But strangely enough, remember, when he was on this island, he was hidden as a girl. He was dressed up and concealed as a girl, basically dressed as a female. And while dressed as a female, he was part of the royal court of like princesses, and he ended up having a relationship with one of the princesses, and he has a son by that princess named Neoptolemus. So that's the son of Achilles. Neoptolemus is sometimes going to go by the nickname Pyrrhus, because apparently Achilles went by the name Pyrrha, female, feminine name, Pyrrha, or because he had red hair, pyre meaning fire, or because he had a very fiery disposition. We're going to see Priam as murdered by Neoptolemus after the fall of Troy, and Neoptolemus is a very angry young man. If you do the math, he can't be much older than 13 or so. So it's like a Latin schooler murdering kings. It's pretty wild stuff. All right, so first, primum, the nominative plural Greeks indicatively came to skiros ut. It's a purpose clause, right? So that, and then if you're hunting for subjunctives, your subjunctive is going to be here, invenerint. So that they might, right? That's imperfect subjunctive. What I just highlighted in purple is imperfect subjunctive. Imperfect subjunctive. It's the whole infinitive plus the ending. The NT is because it's the Greeks, right? Who to find? It's the Greeks, right? First, a few Greeks went to Skiros to find, or so that they might find, Neoptolemus, accusative Neoptolemus, who's the accusative son of genitive Achilles. I hope that makes sense to you, though. So a clean translation there of that first sentence. First, a few nominative Greeks indicatively perfectly went to Skiros so that they might find envenirent, so that they might find Neoptolemus, the son of Achilles. Or in English, you might say to find Neoptolemus, the son of Achilles. All right. If we move on now, again, this is some stuff I think we did in class today. But obviously it's always good to review. Neoptolemus erat juvenis. Nominative Neoptolemus erat was, right? Erat is your indicative, an indicative verb was what? Was a juvenis. So this is a nominative, predicate nominative. This is a nominative subject. So this is your subject. This is your predicate nominative, right? He was a youth. He was a young man. But physis est. But he trusted. He trusted. Remember, that's a unique verb. Why? Because it is semi-deponent, right? It's only deponent in the present system, and in the perfect system, it looks passive and it is deponent. And you trust dative things. So the unique grammar here is ulixi is dative, and it's dative. Why? It's dative with the verb, right? Dative singular with the physis est. You trust in someone, or you give trust to someone. You don't trust an accusative direct object. and voluit, and he perfectly wanted. Now remember, the he here is still Neoptolemus, right? And remember, this is a bit of a typo here, so this should act, this o cheese should be Olchiski from Old Cheese Score. So you're missing that C, and it's just a typographical error. It means to avenge, right? And it looks passive because it's deponent. And he wanted to avenge his father who had just been killed by Paris, that we read about in the prior passage here, right? So you have in this next sentence, the sentence we just did, a clean translation. Neoptolemus was a young man and trusted dative Ulysses or Odysseus, and wanted to avenge or seek revenge for his accusative father. Deinde, then, so now we're on the next sentence here. Deinde, then Ulysses, and Neoptolemus. So they're the subjects, right? So both Ulysses and Neoptolemus. Sometimes you'll see Ulysses with an X. It's definitely X in the genitive forms and following, but often you'll see this as a nominative. Deinde, then Ulysses or Odysseus and Neoptolemus fecerunt. What did they do? They made an iter, an accusative journey. They traveled, right? So this is the verb that they did. They made an iter, an accusative singular neuter journey. Then nominative, Ulysses and Neoptolemus made a journey. Ut, to do what? So ut, it's another purpose clause. To do what? To retrieve, recuperarent. This is going to be another imperfect subjunctive, right? We're in secondary sequence with the perfect tense in the beginning. Then Ulysses and Neoptolemus made a journey or traveled to regain, to get back Philoctetes. Philoctetes is a very interesting character. Philoctetes had been on the boat with the Greeks on his way to Troy. They stopped to get water and offer sacrifice. He gets bit by a snake, and the wound never heals, and it stinks so bad, it gets infected. They actually abandon him on the island of Lemnos. And he's been living on the island of Lemnos by himself for 10 years. It's a small little island. It's just him, the bow of Heracles or Hercules, and animals. So he learns how to, hunt and becomes an expert hunter and is living by himself. And you can imagine that he is harboring a lot of anger toward the Greeks for having left him there. But Calchas said that they need that bow, so Ulysses and Neoptolemus go and try to get him back. So there's a purpose clause, right? Ut plus the recuperarent, and then philoctetam. That am is an accusative singular. Philoctetes, his name is going to decline. Philoctetes, es nominative, and then the rest will be like first declension. It's basically equivalent to a Greek noun. Moving on. Philoctetes solus, Philoctetes habitaverat, pluperfect, because it's so far in the past, right? Had lived solus, alone. So you have nominative Philoctetes had lived alone, solus, by himself, right? Solo. On Lemnos. This is the locative form of Lemnos. It's the small island where he was all by himself. Philoctetes had lived alone on Lemnos, tantum tempus, for such a long time. Again, tantum tempus, accusative duration of time. For how long? For such a long time. And if you see tantum and you see ut, you should know that you're probably staring down the barrel of a result clause, right? He had pluperfectly lived on the island on Lemnos for such a long time that istud volnus, that wound, quote, which, right, relative, which had been made, perfect passive, angue, by the snake. Remember the story I told you just now about how the wound made by the snake didn't heal. Finally, sanatum esset, which is a pluperfect passive subjunctive. And the subject is the volnus, which is neuter, and that explains why it's senatum. If that makes any sense to you. And obviously, we'll go over this in class tomorrow as well. So I'll give you a clean translation. Philoctetes. So we're doing a translation now of this material that is noted, right? Philoctetes habitaverunt, had lived tantum tempus, for such a long time, on Locket of Lemnos, the result was that istud vonus, that neuter nominative wound, quod, which factum erat, had been made a angue, really should probably be ab angue, by the snake, ablative of agent, tandem, finally, at last, had been healed, had been passively, subjunctively, pluperfectly healed. Right, so he no longer had the stinky foot, and he was healed. There's a whole play, a really good play, written by Sophocles about Philoctetes and about the conversation that Odysseus and Neoptolemus have with him and trying to convince him. Very, very much worth reading in English, or if you go in college and study Greek, read it in Greek. It'll be wonderful. Then we have a couple more sentences here. We have an ablative absolute, ulixe locuto, with Ulysses having spoken. Perfect active participle. Why perfect active participle? Because it's deponent, right? Loquar. So it's active. With Ulysses having spoken blandissima verba. Very flattering words. He's buttering him up, right? He's telling him what he wants to know. He's telling him how great he is, how needed he is. This is no easy task. If I had been abandoned for 10 years by my friends on an island to live alone, I'd be very angry and probably wouldn't help them. So you can imagine how well and how well spoken, how persuasive, if you want to speak negatively, how manipulative Ulysses must be. Right? Blandissima, superlatively flattering words, accusative, plural, neuter, right? With Ulysses having spoken very flattering words, Philoctetes, the nominative, that's a singular nominative subject, right? So Philoctetes did what? So this subject, Philoctetes, did what? He decided, constituent. He decided, why? Ob virtutem orficium, on account of virtue and duty. Ob is a preposition, and virtutem and officium are both accusative objects of ob. On account of, for the sake of, ob, for the sake of whatever is accusative after it, right? For the sake of virtue, or virtus, it's almost untranslatable, and officium, duty. He decided on account of virtue and duty, redire, to return Troiam, to Troy. Troiam accusative here for the same reason Skiron's accusative, right? It's a city, so it doesn't require a preposition. You just have that motion toward in the accusative. I hope that makes sense, and we'll certainly explain it more tomorrow. I just don't want to bog you down too much on this brief video. All right, let's do two more sentences. Philoctetes pugnavit tulit. What did he do? He did two verbs. Philoctetes tulit. Philoctetes carried, brought the arcum. That's what they really need. They don't actually need Philoctetes per se, but they need the bow of genitive Hercules, right? Secum, with him, with himself. So Philoctetes tulit, he perfectly brought. Remember, tulit's the perfect of ferofer, right? Philoctetes brought the bow of Heracles with him, and pugnavit, fought perfectly, right? Tulit, pugnavit, both perfect, third singular, active, indicative. Philoctetes brought the bow, the accusative direct object bow of Hercules with him, and fought bravely, fortiter, an adverb. Vere, in fact, just an adverb, vere, in fact, usus est, he perfectly used. Remember, utor takes the ablative. You don't use a direct object, you use an ablative thing. Usus est, in fact, he used, what ablative thing? He used the ablative arcu. And again, if you were to parse that, this is going to be ablative with the special verb, right? Usus est, you use ablative things. And the subject is in the verb here, he. In fact, he used the ablative bo, uccidere, to kill, to slaughter, complementary infinitive, to slaughter whom? Accusative soft Paris. Accusative soft Paris. So this is just your accusative direct object, what was killed. I hope this was helpful for you. I'm trying to make these videos a little shorter, like paragraph by paragraph. We will review this tomorrow. You can ask all the questions you want. Maybe we'll start the third paragraph. Stay safe. Keep washing your hands. Do everything you need to do. Buona fortuna. Hopefully these are helpful to you. And I'll see you tomorrow, first period.